His retired war dog kept barking at the floorboards, until the homeless SEAL uncovered a dead veteran's secret. Rain hammered the rusted houseboat as former Navy SEAL Ray Maddox stepped onto the collapsing dock, with nowhere left to go except the river. The locals laughed when he paid $10 for the abandoned wreck, but his scarred K-9 partner Rex refused to leave the cabin floor alone. Deep beneath the rotting boards, hidden for 40 years, waited a secret that would drag Ray into danger and give him a reason to live again. Comment 1 or 0 and tell us where you're watching from tonight. The bus station in Blackwater Bend smelled like burnt coffee, wet cardboard, and old rain. Ray Maddox stepped down from the Greyhound with one hand gripping the worn strap of his military backpack, while the other rested lightly against the shoulder of the Belgian Malinois standing beside him. The dog moved stiffly onto the cracked pavement, favoring his front left leg, the way he always did when the weather turned cold. The October wind came hard off the river. It carried the smell of mud, diesel fuel, and distant pine forests stretching through the Arkansas hills beyond town. Ray paused for a moment beneath the flickering station light and looked around. Blackwater Bend was the kind of town people forgot existed unless they were born there. One main road, a grain elevator beside the river, a church with peeling white paint. Rusted pickup trucks parked outside diners where old men sat drinking coffee all day and talking about floods, fishing, and weather patterns like they were discussing world politics. Nothing moved quickly here. That suited Ray just fine. Fast movement made him nervous now. Loud sounds made him worse. Rex stood quietly beside him, his amber eyes scanning the street with the same calm alertness that had once saved both their lives overseas. The scar running along the dog's ribcage showed pale beneath his short coat whenever the light hit it right. Combat scars, matching scars, different species, same war. Ray reached down and scratched behind Rex's ears. "You still with me, partner?" he muttered softly. Rex leaned briefly into his hand. That was answer enough. The bus station emptied quickly. Within minutes, Ray and the dog were alone beneath the buzzing fluorescent lights, while the Greyhound disappeared down the wet highway toward Little Rock. Rain clouds hung low over the Ozarks. The sky looked heavy enough to fall. Ray adjusted the backpack on his shoulders and started walking. No destination. No plan. Just movement. Movement kept the ghosts from catching up. The problem was ghosts eventually learned your patterns. 3 months earlier, he had been sleeping behind a warehouse outside Tulsa. Before that, a church shelter in Amarillo. Before that, 2 weeks under an overpass outside Memphis, listening to trucks thunder overhead all night, while Rex slept against his chest like a furnace. Before all that, there had been a house, a wife, a construction company, a daughter who used to wait by the window whenever he came home. That life felt like something he had watched happen to another man, not himself, certainly not the tired stranger reflected now in the dark diner windows he passed. At 56, Ray Maddox looked older than his years. His hair had gone mostly silver around the temples, and the deep lines carved into his face made him appear permanently exhausted. His shoulders still carried the broad frame of a Navy SEAL, but time and pain had hollowed him out. War had a way of taking pieces nobody could see. Some men lost legs, some lost sleep, some lost the ability to sit in crowded rooms without studying exits. Ray had lost the feeling that he belonged anywhere on Earth. Rex stopped suddenly near the edge of town. His ears lifted. Ray followed the dog's gaze downhill toward the river. An old marina stretched along the muddy bank beneath a line of cottonwood trees. Half the docks sagged into the water. Several slips stood empty except for broken pilings and floating debris trapped against the shoreline. At the far end of the marina sat a steel houseboat leaning slightly to one side. Even from this distance, it looked abandoned. The hull was streaked orange with rust. The cabin windows were cloudy with grime. One section of roof sagged inward where water had pooled for years. A faded name remained barely visible along the stern. River Judas. The sight of it stirred something strange inside Ray. Not hope exactly, more like recognition. The houseboat looked the way he felt. Worn down, flooded, still floating somehow. Rex started walking toward it immediately. "Easy!" Ray called, but the dog ignored him. They crossed the empty marina parking lot together, while the wind rattled loose chains against aluminum flagpoles nearby. Water slapped softly against rotting dock posts. A voice drifted from somewhere ahead. "You planning to buy bait or just admire the scenery?" Ray looked up. An older man sat beneath the overhang of a marina office, smoking a cigarette beside an old tackle cooler. He wore denim overalls beneath a brown canvas jacket stained with grease and river mud. Late 60s, weathered face, white beard, sharp eyes. The kind of man who noticed things without asking questions about them. Ray nodded once. Just passing through. The old man glanced toward Rex. "That dog military?" "Retired." "Thought so." The man took another drag from his cigarette. "Dogs like that don't walk. They patrol." Ray said nothing. The old man pointed toward the houseboat. "You interested in that wreck?" "Not particularly." "Funny thing is, your dog seems interested." Rex had already reached the dock. He stood completely still now near the rusted houseboat, staring toward the cabin with intense focus. Not barking, not growling, watching. Ray felt the small hairs rise along the back of his neck. That posture meant something. Rex only locked in like that when he sensed danger. Or death. The old man stood slowly from his chair. "Name's Earl Bennett," he said. "I own what's left of this marina." "Ray Maddox." "Army?" "Navy." Earl studied him carefully. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I figured." Rain began falling lightly through the cottonwoods. Cold droplets struck the river in soft ripples. Earl shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and walked toward the dock. "That boat belonged to an old veteran named Cole Mercer," he said. "River patrol guy from Vietnam. Lived on that thing near 40 years before he died last winter." Ray followed silently beside him. "What happened to him?" "Same thing happens to most lonely old men eventually." Earl shrugged. Hart stopped, found him sitting in a chair facing the river. They reached the dock entrance. The boards groaned beneath their weight. Rex stood near the houseboat's stern now, completely rigid. Earl lowered his voice slightly. "Locals say the boat's cursed." Ray almost smiled. "Locals say lots of things." Fair point. The closer Ray got to the boat, the worse it looked. Rust had eaten deep into the steel hull along the waterline. One cabin window had been boarded over with warped plywood. Moss crept along the edges of the roof. But Ray noticed things other people wouldn't. The weld seams still held. The frame remained level despite years of neglect. The steel beneath the corrosion looked thick. Good bones. Just buried under damage. Rex stepped carefully onto the deck, then stopped. His ears twitched forward sharply. The dog lowered his head toward the floorboards near the cabin entrance. A low rumble formed deep in his throat. Ray froze instantly. That sound. Not aggression. Detection. The same warning Rex used overseas before explosives, before ambushes, before death. Earl noticed the change too. "That normal?" "No." Ray stepped onto the deck slowly. The boat rocked gently beneath his boots. Water knocked softly against the hull. Rex moved toward a rusted hatch near the rear cabin wall, then sat beside it, watching, waiting, like someone stood beneath the floor. Rain intensified overhead. The river darkened under the storm clouds. Earl cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well," he muttered, Truth is, I need that boat gone before winter floods tear the dock apart. Ray glanced back toward him. You selling it? Earl snorted. Ain't nobody buying that floating coffin. He kicked at a loose board with his boot. Truth is, I was planning to cut her loose next month. He paused, then looked at Ray carefully. You got $10? Ray frowned slightly. What? $10, Earl repeated. You give me $10 and the boat's yours. Ray stared at him. Behind them, thunder rolled somewhere deep across the Ozark Hills. You serious? Dead serious. Earl shrugged. Figure maybe an old seal and an old war dog deserve someplace dry to sleep. Ray looked back at the houseboat, then at Rex. The dog had not moved, still staring at the hatch, still listening. For the first time in months, maybe years, Ray felt something inside him loosen slightly. Not safety, not peace, but the faintest possibility of both. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled billfold. Inside were $14, everything left in the world. He removed a $10 bill and handed it over. Earl accepted it slowly. Well, he said quietly, guess you own a boat now. Lightning flashed over the river. For a brief moment, the entire marina glowed silver beneath the storm. And deep below the rusted floorboards of the dying houseboat, something unseen waited in the darkness while Rex kept staring downward like he already knew it was there. Rain hammered the river harder now. The old steel hull groaned softly beneath Ray's boots as the houseboat rocked against its mooring lines. Water slapped the sides with hollow metallic thuds that echoed through the cabin floor like distant artillery. Ray felt his shoulders tighten instantly. Metallic impacts, rhythmic, sharp. His pulse quickened before he could stop it. The river disappeared. For half a second, he was somewhere else entirely. Dust, smoke, concrete walls collapsing inward, gunfire ricocheting through narrow alleyways in Kandahar, while somebody screamed over the radio for extraction coordinates that no longer mattered. Ray blinked hard. The marina returned. Rain. Dark water. Rex. Always Rex. The dog stood beside him without moving, watching him carefully now instead of the hatch. One ear twitched slightly, reading Ray the way only military working dogs could. Ray exhaled slowly through his nose. I'm good, he muttered. Rex did not look convinced. Earl Bennett scratched his beard awkwardly beside the dock entrance. Well, the old man said, storm's getting worse. Power usually cuts out around here when the wind comes hard off the hills. Ray nodded absently. You got somewhere to stay tonight? Earl glanced toward the marina office. Got an old cot in back if you need it. Ray looked at the houseboat again. Water streamed down the rusted cabin walls. One dim yellow light from the marina reflected across the wet deck boards. It should have looked hopeless. Instead, it looked familiar. Temporary shelters, forward operating bases, half-destroyed structures barely holding together, while men inside tried convincing themselves they were safe. Ray understood places like this. You got electricity hooked up to it? He asked. Sometimes, Earl answered honestly. Depends which wires the raccoons chewed through this week. That almost earned a smile. Almost. Ray stepped carefully toward the cabin door while Rex remained glued beside him. The old hinges screamed when he pulled it open. The smell hit first. River mud, mildew, rotting wood. Stale air trapped too long inside forgotten places. But beneath all that was another scent. Oil, metal, old machinery. The cabin was smaller than it looked from outside. A narrow bunk sat against one wall beneath a fogged-over window. Rust stains streaked the ceiling. Cabinets leaned crookedly from warped hinges. A tiny stove sat bolted beside a counter littered with ancient fishing magazines swollen from moisture. Everything looked abandoned in a hurry, as if someone had meant to come back. Rex entered slowly, The dog moved through the cabin with quiet precision, sniffing corners, tracking invisible trails only he understood. Then he returned directly to the section of floor above the hidden hatch, and sat. Again. Watching. Waiting. Rain rattled violently against the roof. Thunder rolled across the Ozarks. Ray crouched beside the dog and ran his hand across the warped boards. Cold. Solid. Nothing unusual. Still, Rex would not take his eyes off it. Earl remained in the doorway. Cole Mercer used to sit right there every morning, he said quietly, pointing toward a rusted chair beside the window. Coffee in one hand, river in the other. Ray glanced back. What does that mean? Earl shrugged. Means he stared at the water a lot. The old man's expression changed slightly then, like he was deciding whether to say something else. Folks around here mostly left him alone. He liked it that way. Didn't trust many people. Veteran? River Patrol. Earl nodded. Vietnam. Ray understood immediately. Some wars stayed inside men longer than others. Vietnam had carved itself into an entire generation. Afghanistan just found new ways to continue the tradition. Earl shifted uncomfortably. Heard you were Navy. Used to be. SEAL? Ray looked up sharply. Earl shrugged again. Only SEALs stand like they're waiting for sniper fire inside a fishing marina. Silence settled between them for a moment, except for rain hammering the roof. Finally, Earl reached into his jacket and tossed a small brass key onto the counter. Generator switch is outside near the fuel drum, he said. Might work, might explode. 50-50 odds. Then he started toward the dock. Town diner opens at 5 in the morning. Martha Gale runs it. Tell her Earl sent you and she'll overcharge you less than everybody else. Ray nodded once. Appreciate it. Earl paused at the doorway. You and that dog got the same eyes, he said quietly. Then he disappeared into the storm. The marina lights flickered twice before half the dock went dark. Rex moved closer immediately. Instinct. Protection. The dog leaned lightly against Ray's leg while thunder rattled the windows hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Ray sat slowly on the edge of the bunk. The mattress springs groaned beneath his weight. Every muscle in his body hurt. Not from labor, from years. Years of sleeping lightly. Years of listening for danger. Years of surviving places where survival eventually stopped feeling important. He removed his boots carefully and flexed his aching knees. Rex climbed onto the floor beside him without invitation. The dog's damaged leg dragged slightly before settling beneath his body. Shrapnel injury. Same mission. Same night, everything changed. Ray stared at the rain-streaked window, and despite everything, memories came anyway. Afghanistan, 8 years earlier. The compound walls had been mud brick and sun-baked stone. Intel said an American journalist was being held inside by insurgents moving through the mountains near Kandahar. Simple extraction. In and out before sunrise. That was the plan. Plans died fast overseas. Ray remembered the explosion first. Always the explosion. The second-floor walkway collapsed beneath 2 members of his team while automatic gunfire erupted from hidden positions inside the courtyard. Smoke. Dust. Screaming over comms. 1 man dead before he hit the ground. Another bleeding out against a broken water tank while Ray tried dragging him toward cover. Then another explosion. Closer. Everything white. Everything ringing. Ray remembered waking beneath concrete debris, unable to hear anything except a sharp electrical whine inside his skull. He couldn't move his left arm. Blood covered his face. The building was collapsing around him, and through the smoke came Rex. The dog had ignored gunfire, fire, debris, everything. He crawled directly into the wreckage, searching for Ray. Ray still remembered feeling the dog's teeth clamp gently around his vest harness while dragging him through falling concrete. One leg, one arm, one impossible, stubborn animal refusing to leave him behind. Rex took shrapnel during the extraction. Ray took worse things nobody could operate on. The mission report called it successful. 3 men still came home in flag-covered coffins. After retirement, Ray tried pretending civilian life made sense. Construction business, suburban house, barbecues, mortgage payments, parent-teacher conferences. But pieces of him never came back from Afghanistan. Not really. His wife stopped sleeping beside him after the nightmares started. His daughter Emily stopped talking during dinner because Ray spent most evenings staring silently through windows, checking reflections like he expected armed men to appear in the backyard. Eventually, the marriage collapsed quietly. No screaming, no dramatic betrayal, just exhaustion. The slow death of people tired of trying to reach someone emotionally stranded somewhere else. Rex rested his head on Ray's knee. The dog's eyes reflected the dim stormlight softly. "You remember it too, don't you?" Ray whispered. Rex blinked once. Outside, thunder shook the marina again. The old houseboat groaned deeper this time. And beneath the floorboards, something knocked faintly in the darkness below. 3 soft metallic taps. Ray froze instantly. Rex's ears shot upright. Silence followed. Only rain. Only river water. Ray stared slowly toward the hatch beneath the warped floorboards. His heartbeat quickened again. Another sound came moments later. Faint, almost buried beneath the storm. Knock, knock, knock. Rex rose immediately and moved toward the hatch with low, controlled intensity. The exact posture he used before clearing dangerous rooms overseas. Ray stood slowly, every instinct sharpened, every nerve awake. The storm outside intensified while somewhere deep beneath the dying houseboat, hidden below layers of rust and darkness, something waited beneath the floor. And for the first time in years, Ray Maddox felt fully alert again. The old instincts returned fast. Too fast. His breathing slowed automatically while his eyes tracked the room in sharp, measured angles. Entrances, blind spots, improvised weapons, escape routes. Rex stood frozen over the hatch, muscles tight beneath his scarred coat. Another knock echoed upward through the floorboards. 3 metallic taps. Then silence. Rain exploded against the windows hard enough to shake the cabin walls. Ray moved carefully toward the rear counter and grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, a rusted pipe wrench sitting beside the sink. His grip tightened around the cold steel while he crouched beside the hatch. The warped boards smelled of mildew and river water. "Easy," he whispered toward Rex. The dog lowered his head closer to the floor, listening. Ray pressed his ear carefully against the hatch. Nothing. Only the muffled groan of water beneath the hull. Then suddenly, thud. The entire boat shifted violently against the dock. Ray jerked upright instantly. Rex barked once. Thunder cracked overhead so loudly the cabin windows rattled in their frames. The realization hit a second later. Not knocking. Loose dock lines. The storm surge had slammed the hull sideways against the pilings. Ray let out a long breath through his nose. Adrenaline still flooded his veins anyway. Rex relaxed only slightly, though his eyes remained fixed downward. "You hear ghosts now too?" Ray muttered softly. The dog remained serious. Outside, wind screamed through the marina. Ray checked the cabin windows once more before finally sitting back against the wall near the bunk. Rex immediately repositioned himself beside the hatch again, unwilling to leave it unguarded. The storm dragged on most of the night. Ray never fully slept. He drifted in and out of shallow exhaustion, while the river battered the houseboat beneath him. Every loud impact sent flashes of memory through his mind. Helicopter rotors, collapsing walls, gunfire ricocheting through dark compounds overseas. Twice he woke with his hand reaching instinctively for a rifle that no longer existed. Both times Rex was already awake, watching him quietly. Near dawn, the storm finally weakened. Gray morning light seeped slowly through the fogged windows while rain softened into a cold, steady drizzle. The river outside had turned the color of wet concrete beneath low-hanging clouds. Ray rubbed his face and sat up slowly. Every joint hurt. Rex stretched stiffly beside the hatch, favoring his injured leg before limping toward the door. "Yeah," Ray muttered. "Me too." Outside, the marina looked even more broken in daylight. Floodwater had washed driftwood against the docks overnight. One empty slip had snapped loose entirely, leaving broken boards floating sideways along the shoreline. The smell of mud and river weeds hung heavy in the cold morning air. Earl Bennett stood near the marina office holding a thermos of coffee while inspecting storm damage. "You still alive?" he called out. "Barely." Earl nodded approvingly. "Then you're fitting in already." Ray climbed carefully onto the dock while Rex moved ahead, sniffing debris washed in by the river. The dog suddenly paused beside the stern again, staring toward the lower section of the hull beneath the waterline, always watching, always listening. Earl handed Ray a steaming paper cup. "Told you the old thing liked to complain during storms." Ray accepted the coffee gratefully. "She always knock like that?" Earl looked puzzled. "Knock?" "Under the floor." The old man studied him for a second, then shrugged. "Boats full of loose metal and old pipes. River shifts, hull flexes. Makes all kinds of sounds." Maybe. But Ray wasn't convinced. He had spent too many years learning the difference between random noise and deliberate sound. Rex wandered farther down the dock, still alert. "You got tools around here?" Ray asked. Earl snorted softly. "Son, this marina survives entirely because old men own too many tools." An hour later, Ray stood inside the marina workshop staring at shelves packed with rusted equipment, welding tanks, spare engine parts, and stacks of weathered lumber. Dust floated through thin beams of morning light, cutting between gaps in the walls. The place smelled like oil, cedar, and old machinery. Comforting smells, familiar smells. For the first time in months, Ray felt useful, instead of merely alive. He found a portable pump, heavy extension cords, and a pry bar while Earl watched from a folding chair near the heater. "You planning to fix that thing?" Earl asked. "Maybe. Most folks would burn it for insurance money." Ray shrugged. "Most folks never had to sleep in bus stations." That silenced the old man. Rex entered the workshop carrying a half-rotten tennis ball he had somehow found buried beneath debris. He dropped it at Ray's feet expectantly. Ray stared down at it. The dog's tail moved once. Small movement. Hopeful. Ray picked up the ball and tossed it lightly across the room. Rex limped after it immediately. Watching the dog move brought an ache Ray rarely let himself feel anymore. Rex had once sprinted through gunfire faster than men 20 years younger. Now age and old injuries slowed him every morning, the same way war slowed Ray. By noon, the rain had stopped completely. Fog drifted low across the river, while weak sunlight filtered through the clouds. Ray hauled the portable pump onto the houseboat deck and lowered the intake hose through the hatch beneath the cabin floor. Dark, foul-smelling water surged upward instantly. The bilge was nearly full. "That ain't good," Earl muttered from the dock. Ray nodded. "No kidding." The pump chugged steadily while filthy river water poured back into the marina. As the bilge slowly emptied, the boat rose slightly higher in the water. Ray crouched beside the opening with a flashlight. Below the floor stretched a cramped steel compartment lined with old pipes and support beams. Muddy water sloshed around the bottom several inches deep, and near the rear section, something wooden, partially submerged. rectangular. Rex growled softly the moment the object became visible. Ray narrowed his eyes. "What is that?" Earl leaned closer. "Haven't the faintest idea." The water level continued dropping. More of the object emerged slowly from darkness. A platform. Wooden boards elevated above the hull floor. Built deliberately. Something had been stored down there. Something someone wanted protected from water. Ray felt his pulse quicken again. Rex whined quietly beside him. Not fear. Urgency. The dog stepped closer until his nose nearly touched the hatch opening. "You smell something, boy?" Rex's ears twitched sharply. Ray grabbed the flashlight tighter and lowered himself farther into the opening. Rust flakes drifted from the steel beams above while cold, damp air rose from below. The platform looked old, very old, and resting on top of it, a large metal object hidden beneath layers of oilcloth and grime. Before Ray could examine it further, footsteps echoed suddenly across the dock outside. Heavy, confident, not Earl. Rex reacted instantly. The dog spun toward the door with a low, warning growl rolling deep through his chest. A shadow appeared through the cabin window. Then a man's voice. "Well, I'll be damned." Ray stood slowly. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a camouflage jacket stood outside the cabin entrance staring at the open hatch. Mid-40s, thick beard, hard eyes. He smelled like cigarettes and cheap whiskey, even from several feet away. Earl's expression darkened immediately. "Morning, Travis." The man ignored him. Instead, his gaze locked onto the exposed compartment beneath the floorboards. Then onto Ray. "You buy this boat?" he asked. Ray nodded once. "Yesterday." Travis Pike smiled faintly, but there was nothing friendly in it. "Funny," he said quietly. "I tried buying this boat after Cole Mercer died." Silence settled heavily inside the cabin. Rex moved protectively beside Ray's leg. The dog's lips curled slightly. Travis noticed. "That dog bite?" "Only when he has a reason." Travis kept smiling anyway. Then his eyes drifted once more toward the hidden compartment below the floor. And for the first time since arriving in Blackwater Bend, Ray realized the old houseboat might be worth far more than $10. Rainwater dripped steadily from the marina roof outside while silence thickened inside the cabin. Travis Pike stood in the doorway with his broad shoulders blocking the gray daylight. His eyes remained fixed on the exposed hatch in the floor, like a starving man staring at a locked refrigerator. Rex's growl deepened. Low, controlled, dangerous. Ray rested one hand lightly against the dog's neck. Not restraint. Communication. Easy. For now. Travis finally looked away from the compartment and focused on Ray instead. "Cole Mercer didn't trust banks," he said casually. "Everybody around here knew that." Earl Bennett snorted from the dock. "Everybody around here also knew to mind their own damn business." Travis ignored him. He used cash mostly. Silver, too. He stepped one pace closer into the cabin. "Old river rats like him got funny ideas about hiding things." Ray said nothing. Years in the teams had taught him silence often revealed more than questions. Travis studied him carefully. "You planning to open whatever's down there?" "Eventually." "That so?" Ray nodded once. "And if I do?" The faint smile disappeared from Travis Pike's face. For a second, something colder surfaced underneath. Calculation. Greed. Maybe worse. Then it vanished just as quickly. "Well," Travis muttered, stepping backward toward the dock. "Blackwater Bend's a small town. Folks notice things." Rex took one aggressive step forward immediately. The dog's ears flattened. Every muscle tightened. Ray could feel the heat rolling off him. Travis noticed, too. "That dog better stay on a leash around people," he said quietly. Ray met his eyes without blinking. "He usually gives fair warning first." Another long silence. Then Travis turned and walked away down the dock toward a battered pickup truck parked beside the marina office. Gravel crunched beneath his boots, while fog drifted low across the river behind him. Earl waited until the truck engine faded down the road before speaking. "That man's trouble." Ray kept watching the empty road. "Figured. He used to run shrimp boats down in Louisiana years ago. Smuggling mostly. Pills, stolen engines, whatever paid." Earl shook his head slowly. "Now he hangs around places looking for easy money." Ray glanced back toward the hidden compartment. "Well," Earl muttered darkly, "looks like he found a reason to get interested." The old marina owner climbed aboard the houseboat carefully and crouched beside the hatch. Together, he and Ray stared into the dark opening while the bilge pump continued spitting foul river water into the marina. More of the hidden object emerged as the water dropped. Definitely metal. Military green beneath layers of grime. Rectangular. Large. Rex suddenly whined softly beside the opening. Not fear. Recognition. The sound tightened something deep inside Ray's chest. "You really think there's money down there?" Earl asked quietly. Ray studied the compartment. "Don't know yet." But his instincts said otherwise. This was deliberate. Whoever built the raised platform beneath the floor understood moisture control, the oilcloth wrapping, the elevation above the bilge line, the concealment beneath welded steel. Military thinking. Organized. Careful. The exact kind of hidden storage Ray himself might have built overseas. By late afternoon, the water level had dropped enough to climb fully inside the compartment. Ray tied a flashlight to his belt and lowered himself carefully through the hatch while Earl steadied the ladder. Rust flaked beneath his boots as he descended into the narrow steel chamber. The air smelled ancient, cold metal, oil, river mud, time. The flashlight beam swept slowly across the compartment walls. No wiring, no plumbing. No reason for this space to exist at all, except hiding things. Rex leaned halfway into the opening above, watching every movement closely. Ray approached the platform slowly. The object beneath the oilcloth looked like an old military storage trunk about 4 feet long. Beside it sat several cylindrical tubes sealed with threaded caps and military markings faded almost beyond recognition. Ammo cans, waterproof containers, everything wrapped carefully. Protected. Preserved. Ray ran his hand across the trunk. Cold steel. Still solid. His pulse quickened. Above him, Earl whispered softly, "You seeing this?" "Yeah." Ray peeled back one corner of the oilcloth. The flashlight beam caught faded stenciled lettering beneath decades of grime. U.S. Navy, 1969. The silence afterward felt enormous. Even Earl stopped breathing for a second. Rex whined again above them. Ray stared at the trunk. Vietnam era. Navy markings. The old veteran's hidden compartment suddenly felt much less mysterious and much more personal. Carefully, Ray checked the hinges. No visible traps. No wiring. No explosives. Old habits died hard. Finally, he lifted the lid. The hinges groaned softly. Inside lay row after row of carefully packed items wrapped in yellowed cloth and sealed plastic. Military journals, old photographs, bundles of cash bound with rubber bands so old they cracked apart at touch, silver coins sealed in canvas bags, dog tags, medals, and beneath all of it, a folded American flag. Earl let out a low breath above him. Sweet Lord. Ray reached for one of the journals first. Leather cover, water-stained, the name embossed faintly across the front. Cole Mercer. Rex barked sharply. Ray looked up immediately. The dog's posture had changed again. Alert, focused toward the marina outside. Someone approaching. Ray climbed back into the cabin fast. Rex moved directly to the window overlooking the dock, growling low in his throat. A truck rolled slowly past towards the marina entrance road. Dark green Ford, tinted windows. It did not stop, but it slowed enough for Ray to notice Travis Pike behind the wheel, watching the houseboat carefully as he passed. Then the truck disappeared. Earl cursed quietly beneath his breath. "He'll be back." Ray looked down at the open hatch. The hidden compartment suddenly felt less like treasure and more like a problem. Still, something deeper pulled at him now. Not greed, recognition, the journals, the military precision, the hidden life buried beneath the floorboards. Ray understood men who hid pieces of themselves away from the world. He had spent years doing the same thing. That evening, Earl left shortly before sunset, promising to return with tools and fresh lock chains for the dock gates. "Keep that dog close tonight," he warned before leaving. Rex needed no encouragement. The moment darkness settled across Blackwater Bend, the Malinois became hyper-alert. He paced the deck repeatedly before finally positioning himself directly above the hatch once again, guarding it. The river turned black beneath the moonless sky. Fog drifted low over the water, while distant frogs croaked somewhere beyond the reeds along shore. Inside the cabin, Ray lit an old kerosene lantern and opened the first journal. The handwriting inside was surprisingly neat. January 14th, 1980. The river froze along the northern bank this morning. Dauphin refused to leave the deck until sunrise. Smart dog. Smarter than most people I've known. Ray stopped reading instantly. Dauphin. A dog. Rex lifted his head from beside the hatch, as if hearing the name, too. Ray turned the page slowly. The entries described life on the river after Vietnam. Sleepless nights. Isolation. Crowded rooms that felt dangerous. Panic triggered by fireworks and helicopter sounds. Every sentence landed harder than the last. Not because the words were dramatic, because they were familiar. Painfully familiar. Cole Mercer had written about war the same way Ray carried it inside himself. Quietly, like something too heavy to fully explain. Hours passed unnoticed while the lantern flickered softly against the cabin walls. Outside, wind moved through the cottonwoods with a hollow whispering sound. Rex suddenly stood upright, instantly alert. The dog moved toward the cabin door without barking. Ray set the journal down slowly. Military instinct returned immediately. Someone outside. Soft footsteps creaked faintly across the dock. Rex's lips curled silently. Ray extinguished the lantern at once. Darkness swallowed the cabin. The footsteps stopped. For several long seconds, neither man nor dog moved. Then, a metallic scrape sounded near the stern of the boat. Somebody testing the dock chains. Rex exploded into a furious bark. The footsteps immediately retreated across the dock at full speed. Ray rushed outside just in time to glimpse a shadow disappearing between parked boats near the shoreline. Gone. Only fog remained drifting above the river. Rex stood rigid beside him, barking toward the darkness until the sound faded completely. Ray's heart pounded hard in his chest. Not fear. Readiness. He looked back toward the hidden compartment beneath the floorboards, toward the journals, toward the old veteran whose secrets were pulling danger toward the marina even after death. Then Ray noticed something else. The dock chain near the stern had been partially cut. Fresh metal marks gleamed silver beneath the moonlight. Someone had tried to untie the houseboat and send it drifting into the river. And suddenly, the old stories about the cursed boat no longer sounded ridiculous at all. Fog rolled thick across the marina before dawn, swallowing the river in layers of cold, gray silence. The cut chain near the stern glimmered faintly beneath the dock light, while Rex stood watch beside it, ears forward, body tense. Ray had not slept. He sat inside the cabin with Cole Mercer's journal open across his knees, while the lantern flame flickered softly against the steel walls. The hidden compartment beneath the floor remained uncovered now, its contents spread carefully across the table and bunk like artifacts recovered from a forgotten war. Photographs, medals, canvas bags filled with silver coins, military documents sealed inside yellowing plastic, and journals. Dozens of journals. 40 years of one man talking to nobody except paper and river water. Ray stared down at a black and white photograph resting beside the lantern. Cole Mercer stood beside a patrol boat somewhere in Vietnam, shirtless beneath the brutal tropical sun, one arm wrapped around the shoulders of a German shepherd with alert, intelligent eyes. The dog looked startlingly familiar. Not the same breed as Rex, exactly, but close enough to tighten something deep inside Ray's chest. The same posture, the same focused stillness. Working dogs always carried themselves differently from ordinary animals. They watched the world like soldiers. The journal entry beneath the photograph read, "Dolphin barked before the ambush started tonight. Smartest Marine in the whole damn river division." Ray read the line twice, then a third time. Outside, Rex suddenly growled low in his throat. Ray looked toward the fogged window instantly. Nothing visible beyond drifting mist and wet dock lights. Still, the dog remained alert, always alert. Ray closed the journal carefully and stood, his knees cracked from age and cold weather, while he crossed toward the small propane stove in the corner. Dead. Rust-eaten. Useless. The entire houseboat needed rebuilding if it was going to survive winter. Most people would have walked away already. Ray found himself doing the opposite. For the first time in years, he cared about something enough to fix it. That realization unsettled him more than the hidden money. Morning finally arrived, pale and cold, over Blackwater Bend. The fog lifted slowly from the river, revealing fishing boats drifting downstream like shadows moving through smoke. Somewhere far across the water, a train horn echoed through the hills. Rex relaxed slightly once daylight spread across the marina. Ray stepped outside, carrying one of Cole Mercer's journals tucked beneath his arm. The river air smelled clean after the storm, heavy with pine and wet earth. Earl Bennett was already waiting near the dock, carrying fresh chain and coffee. "Figured you'd still be here," the old man said. Ray accepted the coffee gratefully. "Somebody tried cutting the boat loose." Earl's face hardened immediately. "You sure?" Ray pointed silently toward the damaged chain. The old marina owner crouched beside it, running rough fingers across the fresh-cut marks. "Bolt cutters," he muttered. "Clean bite." Neither man said Travis Pike's name aloud. They didn't need to. Earl stood slowly. "That fool thinks Cole buried pirate treasure or something." Ray glanced toward the cabin. "There's definitely something worth protecting." Earl looked uneasy for the first time since Ray met him. "You mind if I ask what exactly you found?" Ray studied him carefully. Trust didn't come naturally anymore. Not after war. Not after life afterward. Still, Earl had been honest from the beginning. That mattered. So Ray handed him the black and white photograph from Vietnam. Earl adjusted his glasses slowly. "Well, I'll be damned," he whispered. "You knew him well?" "Known him 30 years. Earl stared at the picture. Never once heard him mention the dog. Ray leaned against the railing quietly. "Men like us don't always talk about the important things." Earl nodded slowly, like he understood more than he intended to say. An hour later, Ray walked into town for supplies. Blackwater Bend looked different in daylight, less haunted. Still worn down, but alive in its own stubborn way. Old men sat outside the bait shop drinking coffee beneath a faded Coca-Cola sign. Pickup trucks rolled slowly down Main Street. Church bells rang faintly somewhere uphill while leaves drifted across cracked sidewalks. Small-town America. Quiet enough to hear your own thoughts. Dangerous for a man like Ray. Because his thoughts rarely stayed friendly long. Rex limped faithfully beside him through town, drawing occasional glances from locals. Some noticed the scars. Others noticed the discipline. Most people moved slightly aside without understanding why. The diner sat near the riverfront, beneath an old green awning that read Martha's in chipped white letters. Inside smelled like bacon grease, coffee, and warm biscuits. Comforting smells, human smells. Ray hesitated near the entrance longer than he should have. Crowded rooms still tightened his chest. Too many exits. Too many blind spots. Too many strangers. Rex pressed lightly against his leg, grounding him, the same way he used to after combat nightmares overseas. Ray finally stepped inside. Conversations dimmed slightly when people noticed the dog, then resumed. A waitress behind the counter looked up, mid-50s, silver hair tied back loosely, kind, tired eyes. "You Earl's veteran?" she asked immediately. Ray blinked once. "Guess so. That means coffee's free your first week." She filled a mug before he could answer. "Martha Gale," she said. "You sit wherever your dog likes best." Rex immediately chose a booth facing the front door and kitchen entrance simultaneously. Of course he did. Ray sat slowly across from him. Martha returned with eggs, bacon, biscuits, and gravy without asking what he wanted. "You look hungry," she said simply. Ray realized he was. He had spent too long surviving on gas station food and shelter meals to remember what normal breakfast tasted like. Martha noticed the scars along Rex's side while setting down the plates. "Combat dog?" "Yeah." "What's his name?" "Rex." She nodded gently. "My son served Marines in Fallujah." Her voice remained calm but softer now. "Dogs brought his unit home more than once." Ray looked up slowly. Something passed silently between them then. Not pity. Recognition. Martha touched Rex's head carefully before walking back toward the counter. The dog allowed it. High praise. While eating, Ray opened another of Cole Mercer's journals beneath the table. One passage caught his attention immediately. March 9th, 1987. The river's the only thing that quiets the noise. Land feels wrong after war. Too still in the wrong places. Too loud in others. Ray stopped chewing. The words landed with frightening accuracy, because he understood exactly what Cole meant. Cities overwhelmed him now. Suburbs felt artificial. Buildings trapped sound in ways that made his nerves ache. But rivers moved, breathed, shifted constantly, like patrol routes, like deployment, like something alive. Maybe that was why the houseboat already felt safer than any apartment or shelter ever had. A shadow suddenly crossed the diner window. Ray looked up instantly. Travis Pike's truck rolled slowly past outside, watching. Again. Rex noticed too. The dog's ears lifted sharply. Martha followed Ray's gaze from behind the counter. Her expression darkened. "You stay clear of that man," she said quietly. "You know him?" "Everybody does." Ray closed the journal carefully. "What does he want with Cole Mercer's boat?" Martha hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Because Cole used to help people around here." Ray frowned slightly. "What kind of help?" "The kind proud men don't talk about." She wiped her hands slowly on a towel. Mortgage payments appearing after floods, vet bills paid anonymously, groceries left on porches after layoffs. Martha glanced toward the river outside. Cole Mercer helped more people than most churches around here. Ray thought about the hidden cash beneath the floorboards, the journals, the careful secrecy. He never told anybody? Martha shook her head. Men like him usually don't. Silence settled briefly between them. Then she added quietly, "Neither do men like you." That line followed Ray all the way back to the marina. By the time he returned, the afternoon sky had darkened again over the Ozarks. Earl was waiting beside the houseboat holding a shotgun across his lap, while sitting in a folding chair near the dock entrance. Ray raised an eyebrow. "Little dramatic?" Earl snorted. "Travis Pike drove by twice while you were gone." Rex moved immediately toward the houseboat, sniffing the dock carefully before boarding. Then the dog froze. His posture sharpened. A low warning growl rolled from deep inside his chest. Ray's instincts fired instantly. Something was wrong. The cabin door stood slightly open, only an inch. But Ray knew he had latched it before leaving town. Earl rose slowly from the chair. "You expecting company?" Ray shook his head once. Rex moved silently toward the entrance, body low and focused. Predatory now, military. The air inside the cabin felt different, disturbed. The journals still sat on the table. The coins remained untouched. But one thing had changed. The hidden compartment beneath the floorboards stood fully open now, and somebody had moved the military storage tubes. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like the walls themselves were listening. Ray stepped inside slowly, while Rex moved ahead of him with silent precision. The Belgian Malinois circled the compartment once, nose working carefully across the disturbed floorboards. Then he stopped beside the bunk, growled once, low, focused. Ray followed his gaze. One of Cole Mercer's journals lay open on the mattress where Ray knew he had not left it. Someone had been reading. Earl Bennett entered behind him carrying the shotgun low against his leg. "You missing anything?" Ray checked the table quickly. The silver coins remained untouched. Cash bundles still stacked inside the trunk. Military medals exactly where he left them. That bothered him more than theft would have. Whoever came aboard wasn't looking for random valuables. They were searching for something specific. Rex suddenly barked sharply toward the rear cabin window. Ray spun instantly. Nothing outside except drifting fog and dark water. But the screen window hung slightly crooked now. Fresh mud streaked the sill beneath it. Somebody had entered through the back deck. Earl cursed quietly. "Damn fool's getting bold." Ray crouched beside the compartment again and examined the military tubes carefully. One had been opened, not fully, just loosened, as if the intruder got interrupted before finishing. He twisted the cap the rest of the way loose. Inside rested a bundle of sealed letters tied carefully with faded blue ribbon. Nothing else. Ray frowned slightly. Letters. That was what somebody came searching for? He removed the bundle slowly. The envelopes were old, yellowed with age, each one addressed in careful handwriting. To Mrs. Helen Sawyer, to Daniel Pierce, to Anna Morales. Dozens of names. None familiar. Most unopened. Earl leaned closer. "What are they?" Ray untied the ribbon gently. The top envelope carried a postmark from 1983 but had never been mailed. Inside sat a handwritten letter folded neatly into thirds. Ray opened it carefully. The handwriting matched Cole Mercer's journals. "Mrs. Sawyer, I don't know if this money fixes anything. I know it doesn't bring your boy home. But Tommy saved my life twice on the river and once during the ambush outside Cantho. I owed him more than this. Maybe I still do. Please don't try finding out who sent it. Some debts are easier carried quietly. Ray stopped reading. Inside the envelope rested 3 crisp $100 bills, untouched for 40 years. Silence settled over the cabin. Even Earl seemed unable to speak for a moment. Finally, the old marina owner lowered himself slowly into the rusted chair beside the window. "Lord have mercy," he whispered. Ray opened another envelope. Another family. Another veteran. Another stack of money never delivered. Some letters contained cash. Others carried only words. Apologies, memories, confessions. One letter simply read, "I still hear the helicopters every night, too." Ray stared at that sentence longer than the others, because he understood it perfectly. Outside, evening shadows deepened over the marina, while cold river wind rattled the loose chains along the dock. Rex lay beside the hatch now, though he remained restless. Every few minutes his ears twitched toward noises outside the boat, still guarding, still listening. Ray continued reading until darkness swallowed the river completely. Each letter revealed another piece of Cole Mercer's hidden life. The old veteran had spent decades trying to quietly help people connected to the war. Widows, broken soldiers, families drowning in hospital debt. He sent money anonymously whenever he could. Sometimes letters too painful to mail. Sometimes just cash with no explanation at all. The journals described loneliness so familiar, it made Ray's chest ache. Crowded stores causing panic. Fireworks triggering flashbacks. Sleepless nights spent walking the riverbank until dawn, because silence inside houses felt unbearable. Cole Mercer had survived Vietnam physically. Emotionally, part of him never came home, just like Ray. The realization settled heavily inside the cabin. War changed uniforms, changed decades, changed locations, but men always carried the same damage afterward. Rex lifted his head suddenly. A vehicle approached outside. Headlights swept briefly across the marina through gaps in the cabin walls. Ray extinguished the lantern immediately. Darkness swallowed the boat. The truck engine idled somewhere near the marina entrance, then stopped. Rex stood silently, every muscle tight. Ray moved toward the window slowly enough not to silhouette himself. A dark pickup sat near the road beyond the docks. Travis Pike's truck. No movement, just watching. The engine remained running for nearly 2 full minutes. Then the headlights disappeared into the fog again. Earl exhaled sharply from the chair. "That boy's gonna get himself hurt." Ray kept staring into darkness. "He thinks there's something else hidden here. Is there?" Ray looked down at the letters. Maybe. Or maybe Travis Pike simply couldn't understand that not all valuable things fit inside a bank vault. Late that night, Earl finally headed home after chaining the marina gates shut himself. "You need anything, you call," he said before leaving. Ray nodded once. "Appreciate it." The old man hesitated, then added quietly, "Cole Mercer used to sit up nights same as you." Ray watched him disappear into fog. Then silence returned. Deep river silence. The kind that amplified every small sound. Rex curled beside the hatch while Ray sat at the table beneath the lantern reading another journal entry. July 11th, 1994. Doffin's getting old now. Hips bother him climbing stairs. Still checks every room before I enter. Still sleeps facing the door. Funny how dogs keep serving long after men stop deserving it. Ray reached down absent-mindedly and rubbed Rex's scarred shoulder. The dog thumped his tail once without lifting his head. The similarities unsettled him more with every page. Cole Mercer wrote about the river the same way Ray thought about mountains overseas. The water became ritual, routine, a moving thing easier to trust than people. One journal entry described sitting awake all night during thunderstorms, because lightning flashes reminded Cole of mortar fire over the Mekong Delta. Another described avoiding family gatherings because too many voices made him feel trapped. Ray closed the journal slowly. He had spent years believing his mind was uniquely broken. Now he realized generations of soldiers carried the same invisible wounds. The thought should have comforted him. Instead, it made him sad, because so many men suffered alone thinking nobody else understood. A sudden sharp bark from Rex shattered the silence. Ray looked up instantly. The dog stood rigid facing the rear deck, growling hard now. Ray extinguished the lantern again and moved silently toward the window. At first he saw nothing, then movement near the shoreline. A flashlight beam flickered briefly through the reeds beside the marina before vanishing. Somebody out there, watching the boat again. Rex barked furiously. The flashlight disappeared at once. Footsteps splashed through shallow mud along the bank, retreating fast. Ray grabbed the pipe wrench from beside the sink and rushed outside onto the slick dock. Cold fog wrapped around him immediately. Darkness everywhere. Only the sound of movement fading through cattails near shore. Rex lunged forward, barking violently toward the reeds, then stopped, frozen. The dog lowered his head and sniffed something near the dock entrance. Ray crouched beside him. Fresh cigarette butts lay crushed in the mud. Still warm. Travis Pike smoked unfiltered Camels. Ray remembered the smell from earlier. He looked toward the dark river beyond the marina. Someone was circling the boat now, watching, waiting, and whatever Cole Mercer hid inside those journals and letters had become dangerous enough to pull predators out of the dark. Back inside the cabin, Ray locked the door for the first time since arriving in Blackwater Bend. Then he returned to the table and opened the final journal resting at the bottom of the trunk. Unlike the others, this one carried no date on the cover, only a single line written carefully in black ink. For the man who finds this boat after me. Rex looked up immediately as Ray opened the first page, and somewhere far downriver, thunder rolled softly through the Ozark Hills again. The lantern flame flickered against the cabin walls, while rain began tapping lightly on the roof once more. Outside, fog drifted low across the black water, swallowing the marina in silence thick enough to feel. Ray adjusted the journal carefully beneath the lantern light. The handwriting inside looked shakier than the earlier journals. Older. Tired. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means the river finally brought somebody broken enough to understand why I stayed." Ray stared at the sentence for a long moment, then continued. Most people think war ends when you come home. That's because most people never really leave it. Rex rested his head across Ray's boot while the old houseboat creaked softly around them. Cole Mercer's words did not read like dramatic confessions. They read like exhaustion. The quiet exhaustion of a man who had carried memories too long without setting them down anywhere. I built the compartment beneath this floor because some things deserve protecting. Not money, not silver. Those are only tools. What matters are the names. Ray turned the page slowly. A list followed. Dozens of names. Veterans, widows, children. Beside each name were dates and dollar amounts carefully recorded over 40 years. Small payments, quiet payments, $1,000 for surgery, $500 for mortgage arrears, $300 for funeral costs. Every page documented lives Cole Mercer had quietly helped without asking recognition from anyone. Ray leaned back slowly in the chair. The old veteran had spent half his life trying to rescue strangers from drowning, the same way nobody rescued him after Vietnam. Something tightened painfully inside Ray's chest, because he understood the impulse. War left men carrying debts impossible to repay. Outside, Rex's ears suddenly lifted. The dog stood instantly, alert. Ray closed the journal. "What is it?" Rex moved toward the cabin window, growling low. Headlights swept across the marina again. This time, 2 vehicles. One truck, one older sedan. Both stopped near the marina gate. Ray extinguished the lantern immediately. Darkness swallowed the cabin. The only sounds were rain and Rex's deep, controlled growl vibrating through the floorboards. Doors slammed outside. Voices drifted faintly through the fog. Travis Pike, and at least 2 others. Ray moved silently toward the rear wall and looked through a narrow gap beside the boarded window. 3 men approached the dock carrying flashlights. No attempt to hide now. One held bolt cutters, another carried something long beneath his jacket. Not a fishing rod. Earl's warning echoed in Ray's head. That boy's gonna get himself hurt. Rex stood beside the door, trembling with restrained aggression. Ray placed one hand against the dog's shoulder. Quiet! The Malinois obeyed instantly. Military discipline surviving age and scars. Outside, Travis stopped near the dock entrance. Boat's occupied, one of the men muttered nervously. So? Travis answered. That dog's mean. Then don't get bit. Ray's pulse slowed. Not fear. Preparation. The old instinct settled over him again like cold armor. He checked the room automatically. Pipe wrench near sink. Heavy flashlight on table. Limited exits. Dock choke point outside. 3 men. Probably intoxicated. Poor coordination. Ray hated how naturally his mind still calculated violence. He hated it even more because part of him felt alive doing it. Travis stepped onto the dock first. The boards groaned beneath his boots. Ray, he called out casually. We need to talk. No answer. Rex's growl deepened. The flashlight beams moved across the boat exterior, searching. Then one beam settled on the rear cabin window. Think he's asleep? Travis laughed softly. Men like him don't sleep much. That landed closer to truth than Ray liked. Travis climbed onto the deck slowly. The others hesitated behind him. Rainwater dripped from their jackets while fog curled around the dock lights behind them. Listen, Travis called through the cabin door. Nobody wants trouble here. Ray almost smiled at that. Men announcing they didn't want trouble usually arrived carrying it. Travis continued. Cole Mercer hid something valuable on this boat. Everybody knows it. You found it. Fair enough? Silence. Thing is, Travis said, some of that belongs to folks around here too. Still no answer. Rex's muscles tightened harder beneath Ray's hand. Then came the sound. Metal scraping against metal. The bolt cutters. They were cutting the dock chain again. Ray moved instantly. He flung the cabin door open hard enough to slam against the outer wall. All 3 men jumped. Rex exploded forward beside him like a released missile. The Belgian Malinois barked once, a terrifying combat bark that echoed across the marina. One of the men stumbled backward immediately. Jesus Christ! Travis recovered fast. Call off the dog. Ray stepped onto the rain-slicked deck, holding the pipe wrench loosely at his side. No. The word came calm, cold, the same tone he once used clearing compounds overseas. Travis narrowed his eyes. We ain't here to fight. Then leave. Rain drummed steadily against the river, while lightning flickered faintly beyond the Ozark Hills. The younger man holding bolt cutters looked increasingly nervous now. That's enough, Travis. But Travis Pike wasn't listening anymore. His gaze drifted past Ray toward the open compartment visible through the cabin floor. Greed burned openly there now. You know how much money old Cole hid over the years? He asked quietly. You think he gave it all away? Ray said nothing. Because honestly, he didn't know. And Travis saw uncertainty flash briefly across his face. That was enough. He kept more, Travis muttered. I know he did. Rex barked again, closer now. The dog stood directly between Ray and the intruders. teeth exposed beneath rainwater dripping from his muzzle. Lightning flashed overhead. For one brief instant, Travis Pike looked genuinely afraid. Then anger replaced it. "You think that mutt scares me?" The moment he took another step forward, Rex lunged. Fast. Terrifyingly fast for an aging dog with a damaged leg. The Malinois slammed into Travis's chest, knocking him backward against the dock railing while snarling inches from his throat. The other two men panicked instantly. One dropped the bolt cutters and ran. The second stumbled backward into the marina piling and nearly fell into the river. Ray grabbed Rex's harness before the dog fully committed to the attack. "Out!" Rex froze instantly, still growling, still ready, but obedient. Travis shoved himself upright, breathing hard now, soaked in rain and humiliation. "You crazy son of a bitch," he spat. Ray stepped closer slowly. "Next time he bites." Silence. Even the storm seemed quieter suddenly. Travis stared at Ray for several long seconds. Then his expression changed. Not fear, hatred. "You don't know what Cole Mercer was mixed up in," he said quietly. Ray's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" But Travis only backed away toward the dock. "You'll find out." Then he turned and disappeared into the fog with the others. Truck doors slammed, engines roared, headlights vanished into darkness. Only rain remained. Ray stood motionless on the deck long after the vehicles disappeared. Rex pressed tightly against his leg, still scanning the darkness for threats. Adrenaline pulsed through Ray's bloodstream. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from memory. Combat always returned afterward in pieces. The sounds, the tension, the impossible awareness, and beneath it all, the shame of realizing some part of him still understood violence too well. Back inside the cabin, Ray locked the door again and sat heavily beside the lantern. Rex refused to leave the doorway, still guarding, still watching. Ray reopened Cole Mercer's journal slowly. Near the final pages, another passage caught his attention immediately. "There are men who come looking when they smell weakness. They circle wounded things the way coyotes circle dying deer. The river taught me that. War taught me worse." Ray looked toward the dark windows, then continued reading. "If somebody comes for what's hidden here, trust the dog first. Dogs know what kind of souls men carry long before people do." Ray's eyes drifted toward Rex. The Malinois finally relaxed enough to lie down beside the door, though one ear remained upright toward the storm outside. Ray stared at the dog quietly. "You knew they were coming before I did," he muttered. Rex blinked once. The lantern crackled softly beside them while rain washed over the dying marina. And deep beneath the floorboards, hidden among the journals and silver coins and forgotten letters, more secrets still waited for the right man to uncover them. The storm lingered through most of the night. Not violent anymore. Just steady rain falling across the river while wind whispered through the cottonwoods along shore. The houseboat creaked gently against its mooring lines, rocking in slow, tired motions beneath the dark sky. Ray sat awake beside the lantern long after midnight, with Cole Mercer's final journal resting open across his knees. Rex finally slept, or something close to sleep. The old Malinois lay stretched across the doorway, with one ear still twitching at distant sounds. Even exhausted, the dog guarded instinctively. Ray envied that certainty. Dogs never questioned who they were. Men did. The journal pages crackled softly beneath Ray's fingers. September 2nd, 2018. My heart's getting worse. River doctor says I should move someplace closer to town. Maybe assisted living. Maybe family, if I had any left willing to answer the phone. Ray swallowed quietly. The next line hit harder. Truth is, I'd rather die here with the river than live somewhere nobody understands why I keep checking windows before sitting down. Ray closed his eyes briefly, because he understood exactly. Every restaurant, every waiting room, every motel, always scanning exits, always measuring threats, always listening. War never really left men like them. It only changed scenery. The lantern hissed softly, while rain blurred the cabin windows silver. Then Rex's head lifted instantly. Awake. Alert. Ray froze. The dog rose without making a sound and moved toward the rear wall slowly, nose lifted into the air. Then came the smell. Smoke, faint at first, then stronger. Ray stood immediately. Outside, orange light flickered through the fog beyond the marina office. Fire. Rex! The dog was already moving. Ray burst through the cabin door into cold rain just as flames erupted from the old storage shack near the fuel drums at the far end of the marina. The fire spread unnaturally fast. Too fast. Gasoline. Accelerant. Damn it! The wind carried sparks across the wet dock, while black smoke rolled upward into the storm clouds. Earl Bennett appeared from the marina office shouting something Ray couldn't hear over the roar of flames. Then movement caught his eye. Two shadows running along the shoreline beside the marina. One carried something metallic. Bolt cutters. Travis Pike. This wasn't random. The fire was distraction. Rex barked furiously and sprinted toward the shore despite his injured leg. Ray took off after him through the rain-slicked dock. Gunmetal flashes of lightning lit the marina white for split seconds at a time. One of the men reached the stern of the houseboat first. Ray saw him kneeling beside the mooring chains, cutting them loose. Rex! The command exploded across the storm. The Malinois launched forward instantly. Even old, even scarred, the dog moved like combat memory itself. He slammed into the man hard enough to throw both of them sideways against the dock railing. The bolt cutters splashed into the river while the intruder screamed in panic. Another figure emerged through smoke behind the boat. Travis Pike. He carried a steel pipe in both hands. Ray shouted instinctively. Too late. The pipe crashed against Rex's ribs with a sickening metallic thud. The dog yelped sharply and collapsed sideways across the wet dock. Something inside Ray snapped. Not rage. Something colder. Something older. Combat instinct flooded back so completely it erased thought. Travis swung again. Ray caught the pipe mid-strike and drove his shoulder into Travis's chest hard enough to send both men crashing against the railing. The dock groaned violently beneath them, while rain poured off the rooftops in sheets. Travis hit hard. Ray didn't stop. Years of buried survival training erupted through muscle memory before conscience could catch up. He slammed Travis against the dock planks once, twice, then ripped the pipe free and hurled it into the river. The second intruder staggered upright, holding one arm where Rex had bitten deep through his jacket. "Let's go," he screamed. But Travis Pike wasn't retreating. Not yet. Lightning flashed again across the marina. For one terrible second, Ray saw the man clearly through rain and smoke. Desperate, wild-eyed, terrified of losing something he believed belonged to him. "You don't understand what's hidden on that boat," Travis shouted. Ray shoved him backward hard. "Then explain it." But Travis only lunged again. Bad mistake. Ray sidestepped automatically and drove him face first into the dock railing. Wood cracked loudly beneath the impact. The fight left Travis instantly after that. Not unconscious, just finished. The second man grabbed him beneath the shoulders, while flames spread higher behind the marina office. Sirens echoed faintly from town now. Somebody had finally called the fire department. Travis spat river water and blood onto the dock, while glaring at Ray with pure hatred. "Cole Mercer stole it," he rasped. Then the two men disappeared into darkness near the shoreline before Ray could stop them. The storm swallowed them whole. Ray stood breathing hard in the rain, while smoke rolled across the marina. Then he heard it, a soft, painful whine behind him. Rex. The dog lay curled near the stern chain, breathing heavily, too heavily. Ray dropped beside him instantly. Hey, partner. Rex tried standing, collapsed again. The pipe strike had landed hard against his old combat injuries. His breathing came shallow now beneath rain-soaked fur. Earl arrived running through smoke carrying a fire extinguisher. "The fuel drums!" he shouted. The flames had reached the side of the storage shack nearest the gasoline tanks. Ray looked once toward the growing fire, then back at Rex. Choice made instantly. Nothing mattered more. He lifted the Malinois carefully into his arms. The dog trembled violently, but never tried biting or struggling. Trust like that only came from years beside one man. "You're okay," Ray whispered, though fear already clawed hard through his chest. The fire department arrived minutes later, lights flashing red across the flooded marina, while firefighters battled the blaze with hoses stretching across the dock. Ray barely noticed. He sat inside Earl's pickup truck, cradling Rex across the seat, while rain hammered the windshield. The dog's breathing sounded wrong. Wet, labored. Internal injury, maybe. Old injuries made worse. Earl climbed into the driver's seat, soaked to the bone. "There's a 24-hour vet clinic up near Mountain View," he said. "About an hour east." Ray nodded immediately. "Go." The truck tore through rain-dark highways while emergency lights faded behind them along the river. Rex lay across Ray's lap, wrapped in Earl's old canvas jacket. Every bump in the road drew small, painful sounds from the dog's throat. Ray stroked his head constantly. "You stay with me," he whispered again and again. Outside, the Ozark Mountains rolled beneath storm clouds and scattered moonlight. Pine forests blurred past the windows, while rivers overflowed beside narrow roads twisting through darkness. For the first time in years, Ray realized something terrifying. He could survive losing houses, money, marriage, pride. But not this dog, not Rex, because Rex carried the last living piece of the man Ray used to be before war hollowed everything out. The realization hit harder than any firefight ever had. Earl drove faster. Neither man spoke much. They didn't need to. Rex's breathing filled the truck cab like a countdown clock. At one point, the dog opened his eyes weakly and looked up at Ray, still watching him, still loyal, even now. Ray pressed his forehead briefly against the dog's wet fur. "You already brought me home once," he whispered shakily. "Don't quit on me now." The veterinary clinic finally appeared near dawn beneath glowing fluorescent lights beside the highway. A young veterinarian rushed outside with 2 assistants carrying a stretcher. Ray tried helping lift Rex. His hands shook too badly. "Sir, we've got him," the vet said gently. But Ray followed anyway. Straight through the doors, straight into the harsh white lights and antiseptic smell and terrible memories of military hospitals overseas. The vet stopped him near the hallway. "We need to work." Ray stared helplessly as they disappeared through swinging doors with Rex. Then silence swallowed him whole. Rain tapped softly against the clinic windows. Somewhere down the hall, machines beeped steadily. Ray lowered himself slowly into a waiting room chair and buried his face in his hands for the first time in years. Not because he was hurt, because he was afraid. Truly afraid. And outside, beyond the Ozark Hills, the river kept moving silently through darkness, while the old houseboat waited alone at the burned marina, with all its secrets still hidden beneath the floorboards. The veterinary clinic smelled like antiseptic, wet jackets, and burnt coffee. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, while rainwater dripped from Ray Maddox's boots onto the waiting room floor. The clock above the reception desk read 3:17 a.m. Time barely moved after that. A television mounted high in the corner played muted weather reports no one watched. Somewhere down the hallway, a dog barked once, then went quiet. Wind rattled dead leaves against the windows facing the dark highway outside. Ray sat motionless in the plastic chair with his elbows resting on his knees and his hands locked tightly together. The trembling had not stopped yet. Not from cold, not from exhaustion, from helplessness. That feeling was worse than combat. In war, there was always something to do. Move, fight, carry, stop the bleeding, call extraction. Helplessness came afterward. Hospitals, funerals, phone calls to families. That was the part that destroyed men. Earl Bennett sat nearby, nursing a paper cup of coffee gone cold an hour earlier. The old marina owner had removed his soaked jacket, revealing suspenders stretched across a faded flannel shirt. He watched Ray quietly for a long time before speaking. "You should try resting." Ray shook his head once. "No." Earl nodded like he expected the answer. Rain continued falling outside. Steady, soft, the kind of Ozark rain that could last 3 days without stopping. Finally, the hallway doors opened. The veterinarian stepped into the waiting room, removing surgical gloves as she walked. Mid-30s, blonde hair tied back tightly, exhaustion visible beneath her eyes. Ray stood immediately. "How is he?" The veterinarian exhaled carefully. "He's stable." Ray's shoulders loosened slightly for the first time all night, but only slightly. "He has bruising around older scar tissue and 2 cracked ribs. One of them shifted close to the lung." She glanced toward the hallway behind her. "Another hard hit could have killed him." Ray looked away briefly. Guilt hit harder than relief. "He's awake now," she continued. "But he's exhausted. Honestly." She paused carefully. "This dog's body has been through a lot already. Combat injuries, age, miles, years." Ray understood. The vet softened her voice slightly. "You military?" "Navy." She nodded toward the hallway. "I figured. Dogs like him usually come from one of 2 places, ranches or war." Ray almost smiled. Almost. "You can see him now," she said. The examination room was small and dimly lit. Rex lay beneath warm blankets on a padded floor mat with an IV line attached to his front leg. His breathing sounded steadier now, though every inhale still carried strain. The moment Ray entered, the dog lifted his head weakly. Tail thump, once. Ray knelt beside him immediately. "Hey, partner." Rex pushed his muzzle into Ray's hand, still checking on him, still making sure his human survived too. That nearly broke something inside Ray. He rested one hand carefully against the dog's neck while the monitors beeped softly nearby. "You scared the hell out of me." Rex blinked slowly. The veterinarian quietly left them alone. Outside, the rain eased toward dawn. Gray light began spreading through the mountains beyond the clinic windows, while fog gathered low between the pine-covered ridges. Ray remained beside Rex for hours. No sleep, just silence. At some point, Earl disappeared and returned carrying breakfast biscuits wrapped in paper towels from a gas station down the road. "You gotta eat something," the old man muttered. Ray took one mostly because arguing required energy. Neither man spoke much while daylight slowly filled the clinic. The storm had finally passed. Around 8 in the morning, Martha Gale arrived unexpectedly carrying a thermos and wearing an oversized raincoat over her diner clothes. Ray looked genuinely surprised. "How'd you know where I was?" "Earl called," she said simply. She handed him coffee without ceremony and sat beside him near the window overlooking the parking lot. No pity, no dramatic sympathy, just presence. Sometimes that mattered more. Martha stared quietly at Rex, sleeping beneath the blankets. "My son had a shepherd over there," she said softly after a while. "Dog used to sleep outside his bunk every night." Ray listened. After Tyler died, That dog waited beside our front porch for almost 6 months. She looked down into her coffee. Animals understand loyalty better than people do. The words settled heavily between them. Ray stared through the clinic window toward the fog-covered mountains. I should have seen Pike coming, he muttered. Martha looked at him carefully. You're not responsible for what ugly men choose to do. That dog got hurt protecting me. He probably thinks you're worth protecting. Ray said nothing, because that was the problem. Part of him no longer believed he was. Silence returned. Soft, not uncomfortable. Finally, Martha asked quietly, "What exactly did you find on that boat?" Ray hesitated, then slowly removed one of Cole Mercer's journals from his backpack. Martha read several pages silently, while morning light brightened around them. When she finished, her eyes looked wet. "I knew Cole helped people," she whispered. "I just never knew how much." Ray leaned back heavily in the chair. He spent 40 years trying to save strangers. Maybe he was trying to save himself, too. That line stayed with Ray, because deep down he knew it was true. Around noon, the veterinarian returned with updated x-rays. "He'll recover," she said. "But he needs rest. No running, no fighting, no dock jumping." Ray looked down at Rex. The dog opened one eye lazily, as if insulted by the suggestion. The veterinarian smiled faintly. "He's stubborn. Occupational hazard." For the first time since arriving in Arkansas, Ray heard himself make a joke. Tiny thing, barely noticeable. Still, Martha caught it. So did Earl. Neither said anything, but both noticed. By late afternoon, the rain finally stopped completely. Sunlight broke through the clouds over the Ozarks, turning the wet parking lot gold beneath the fading storm. The mountains beyond the highway looked freshly washed clean. Ray stepped outside alone for air, while Rex slept inside the recovery room. Cold wind moved through the pine trees nearby. For a long time, he simply stood there breathing. No gunfire, no explosions, no screaming radios, just wind. And somewhere beneath all the noise in his mind, something quieter began surfacing. Not peace exactly, but maybe the memory of it. Earl joined him outside carrying another cup of coffee. "Fire marshal says the marina office survived," he said. "Storage shack's gone, though." Ray nodded absently. "Boat? Still floating." That mattered more than it should have. Earl leaned against the truck beside him. "Pike disappeared after the fire. He'll come back. Probably." Silence again. Then Earl cleared his throat. "You know what bothers me most?" Ray glanced over. "That old houseboat." Earl stared toward the distant mountains thoughtfully. Cole Mercer lived there 40 years. Never once had trouble like this until somebody found those journals. Ray understood what he meant. The money alone didn't explain Travis Pike's obsession. There was something else. Something Pike believed Cole had hidden. And whatever it was had already pulled violence to the marina. Back inside the clinic, Rex finally stirred awake again as sunset painted the mountains orange beyond the windows. Ray sat beside him quietly while the dog rested his heavy head across Ray's boot. "You remember Afghanistan?" Ray asked softly. Rex's ears twitched. "Remember that school compound outside Kandahar?" Memory flooded back instantly. Dust storms, collapsed walls, blood. Rex dragging him through smoke while gunfire cracked overhead. Ray swallowed hard. "I never thanked you properly for that." Rex looked up slowly. The dog didn't understand words the way people did, but he understood tone, emotion, pain. Ray rested his hand against the scar along Rex's ribs. "You kept me alive after the war, too." His voice nearly failed then, because admitting it out loud made it real. The shelters, the drinking, The nights sitting awake with a pistol beside motel beds, wondering if tomorrow mattered enough to see. Rex had stayed through all of it. Every broken piece, every dark thought, every mile. The dog never left. Ray lowered his head briefly against Rex's neck, and for the first time in years, the former Navy SEAL quietly prayed. Not for himself, for the dog, for one more chance, for more time. Because somewhere along the way, Rex had become the last thread still connecting Ray Maddox to the human race. Outside, the sun disappeared behind the Ozark ridges while darkness settled slowly over Arkansas. And back at the marina beside the river, hidden beneath the floorboards of the battered old houseboat, Cole Mercer's final secret waited patiently for the next broken soldier to uncover it. Rex stayed at the veterinary clinic 3 more days. The dog improved slowly, carefully. Every movement looked stiff and painful, but the veterinarian finally allowed short walks outside beneath the pine trees behind the building. Ray never left his side during any of it. Not once. At night, he slept in the chair beside Rex's recovery mat, with Cole Mercer's journals stacked beside him, like old field manuals from another war. Somewhere during those long, quiet nights, the stories stopped feeling like somebody else's memories. They started feeling personal. The old Vietnam veteran had built his entire life around survival after war. The river, the isolation, the hidden compartment, the anonymous acts of kindness. All of it came from one simple truth. Cole Mercer believed broken men still deserved somewhere to land. Ray read that realization between nearly every line. By the 4th morning, fog drifted low through the mountain valley, while pale sunlight filtered across the clinic parking lot. Rex limped slowly beside Ray through wet grass near the tree line, stopping every few yards to sniff the cold morning air. The dog looked tired, older, but alive. Ray watched him carefully. "You're tougher than me," he muttered. Rex ignored him in favor of investigating a squirrel trail near the fence. Typical. When they returned inside, the veterinarian handed Ray a small paper bag filled with medication bottles. "No rough activity for at least a few weeks," she warned. "And if he starts coughing or breathing hard again, bring him back immediately." Ray nodded. "I will." She hesitated a moment before adding quietly, "He's attached to you." Ray looked down toward Rex. "So am I." The veterinarian smiled faintly. "Then take care of each other." The drive back to Blackwater Bend felt different. The storm had scrubbed the Ozarks clean. Sunlight poured across endless pine forests and rocky hillsides glowing gold beneath October skies. Rivers overflowed gently through valleys lined with sycamore and cottonwood trees already turning orange. For the first time in years, Ray noticed scenery again. Not threats, not exits, not crowds, just land. Beautiful land. Rex slept most of the drive with his head resting across the truck seat, while Earl Bennett smoked quietly beside the open window. About 20 miles from town, Earl finally broke the silence. "Fire marshal says somebody cut the fuel lines before the marina fire." Ray looked over slowly. "Intentional." "Yep." Neither man needed to say Travis Pike's name. The old marina owner tapped ash out the window. "You know what bothers me?" "What?" "Pike acted desperate." Earl frowned toward the road ahead. "Men get greedy over money, but desperate usually means something else." Ray understood that too, and he had spent enough time reading Cole Mercer's journals to know the answer probably waited somewhere inside the hidden compartment. Blackwater Bend appeared near sunset. Smoke still stained part of the marina sky black, where the storage shack had burned down to its foundation. Firefighters had cleared most of the debris already, but the smell of wet ash lingered over the river. The houseboat remained tied safely at the far dock, still floating, still waiting. Ray felt something tighten quietly inside his chest when he saw it again. Relief, home. That realization startled him more than anything else. Earl parked near the dock while Rex climbed carefully from the truck. The dog moved slower now, favoring his injured side badly. But the moment his paws touched the marina, he became alert again, watching, guarding. Ray unlocked the cabin door carefully. Everything remained exactly where he left it after the attack. The journals, the coins, the hidden compartment. But the atmosphere inside had changed somehow. The boat no longer felt abandoned. It felt occupied, alive with memory. Rex limped directly toward the open hatch and lay beside it heavily, as if resuming guard duty after temporary leave. Ray crouched beside the compartment and pulled out the final military storage tube, the only one he had not fully examined yet. Its cap unscrewed stiffly beneath his fingers. Inside rested 3 objects: a folded property deed, a smaller sealed envelope, and an old leather collar with tarnished brass hardware. Dog collar, military issue. Ray lifted it carefully into the fading cabin light. Stamped faintly into the leather were the words, Dauphin, USNK-9. Rex raised his head immediately. The old Malinois sniffed the collar once, then froze, completely still. Ray watched the dog carefully. Something passed through Rex's posture then. Recognition. Not memory exactly. Instinct. The preserved scent of another working dog buried deep in old leather and oil and time. Ray swallowed hard. "You smelled him," he whispered. The realization hit slowly but powerfully. From the very first night, Rex had reacted to the hidden compartment because another military dog had once lived inside this story. Another partner. Another soldier. Another animal who carried broken men through war. Ray opened the envelope next. Inside sat a handwritten letter folded neatly into thirds. The paper crackled softly beneath his fingers. "If you found this, the dog chose you before the river did." Ray stared at the line, then continued reading. "I stopped believing in coincidence a long time ago. Men like us drift toward certain places for reasons we don't always understand until later. If you're reading this, you're probably carrying the same things I carried home from Vietnam. Noise in your head, faces that won't leave, the feeling that everyone else kept living while part of you stayed behind somewhere ugly." Ray's chest tightened painfully, because every word landed true. Cole Mercer continued, "This boat saved my life more than once, not because it floated, because it gave me somewhere small enough to survive inside until I learned how to belong to the world again." Ray lowered the letter briefly. Outside, evening settled softly across the marina, while river water knocked gently against the hull. The old veteran's voice felt alive inside the cabin now, honest, tired, human. He continued reading. "The money beneath this floor was never treasure. It was insurance. For widows, for veterans, for anybody drowning quietly while the world looked somewhere else. But there's one more thing hidden here." Ray sat straighter instantly. "Beneath the false panel at the rear of the compartment, you'll find the deed to 12 acres upriver. Small cabins, old boat shed. Not much worth stealing, but maybe worth rebuilding. I bought the land because broken soldiers need places where nobody asks too many questions." Ray unfolded the property deed slowly. 12 acres along the White River north of Blackwater Bend. Ownership transferred fully to whoever possessed both deed and journals. Ray stared silently at the papers. Cole Mercer hadn't hidden wealth. He had built a refuge, a place meant to survive him. The final lines of the letter shook Ray hardest of all. "If the dog still trusts you, you're probably better than you think you are. Take care of the river. Take care of the dog. And for God's sake, take care of yourself, too." Cole Mercer's silence filled the cabin afterward. Heavy silence. the kind that settles after hearing truth spoken plainly. Rex rested his head across Ray's boot again. Ray looked down at him slowly. "You knew all along, didn't you?" The dog blinked once. Outside, headlights suddenly swept across the marina again. Both man and dog reacted instantly. Ray folded the letter quickly, while Rex rose stiffly to his feet, growling low. A truck approached the dock entrance fast. Too fast. Ray reached automatically for the pipe wrench beside the counter. But when the truck stopped, Martha Gale climbed out, carrying 2 grocery bags and a thermos. Rex relaxed immediately. Interesting. The dog trusted her now. Martha noticed the weapon in Ray's hand and raised an eyebrow. "You greet everybody like that?" Ray lowered the wrench awkwardly. Occupational hazard. She climbed aboard the houseboat slowly, while looking around the cabin. The damaged walls, the scattered journals, the old lantern light glowing against steel walls. Then her eyes settled on the dog collar resting beside Ray. "What's that?" Ray handed her Cole Mercer's letter silently. Martha read the entire thing without speaking. By the end, her eyes looked damp. "He was building a sanctuary," she whispered. Ray nodded slowly. "For veterans." Martha handed the letter back carefully. "You know what scares men like Travis Pike most?" "What?" "Places they can't profit from." The wind moved softly through the marina outside, while darkness deepened over the river. Ray looked around the battered old houseboat again. At the journals, the hidden compartment, the dog lying beside his feet. And for the first time in many years, the future no longer looked completely empty. It looked uncertain, difficult, dangerous, maybe, but not empty. Somewhere beyond the dark riverbanks, 12 forgotten acres waited quietly in the Ozark wilderness. And slowly, almost against his own will, Ray Maddox began imagining what it might feel like to build something instead of merely survive it. Winter arrived early in Blackwater Bend. Cold fog settled over the river most mornings now, drifting between the docks like pale smoke while frost gathered along the railings and boat ropes before sunrise. The cottonwood trees along shore stood bare against the gray Arkansas sky, their branches creaking softly whenever north wind rolled through the valley. The houseboat looked different too, alive again. Not finished, but changing. Ray spent nearly every daylight hour rebuilding it piece by piece with the same stubborn focus he once used cleaning rifles and checking gear before missions overseas. Routine helped. Routine always helped. He patched rusted sections of the hull using steel plates Earl Bennett helped weld into place. He replaced rotten boards along the rear deck with salvaged cedar planks donated by fishermen from town. He rewired most of the cabin himself beneath Rex's watchful supervision. The old boat slowly transformed beneath cold winter sunlight. So did Ray. Not dramatically. Healing never looked dramatic in real life. It looked like routine. Work. Small, quiet decisions repeated every day. Rex recovered slowly alongside him. The dog still limped during cold mornings, and sometimes Ray caught him pausing halfway across the dock to rest without wanting anyone to notice. But the old Malinois remained determined to patrol the marina daily, especially at night. Especially after Travis Pike disappeared. No one had seen him in nearly 3 weeks. That bothered Ray more than if the man had stayed visible. Predators went quiet before they struck. Still, Blackwater Bend itself slowly wrapped around Ray in ways he never expected. Martha Gale began bringing dinner to the marina twice a week without asking permission first. Earl stopped pretending Ray was temporary and simply handed him spare keys to the workshop one cold morning without explanation. Even townspeople started nodding at him now. Small-town acceptance came slowly, but once earned, it settled deep. One icy December morning, Ray and Rex finally drove upriver to see the 12 acres Cole Mercer left behind. The road wound through dense pine forest and rocky hillsides overlooking the white river below. Frost covered the ground beneath cedar trees, while hawks circled silently high above the valley. The property sat hidden at the end of an overgrown gravel trail. Ray shut off the truck engine slowly. Silence surrounded them immediately. Deep wilderness silence. Rex stepped out first. The dog sniffed the frozen air carefully, while Ray stared across the land ahead. Cole Mercer's sanctuary waited quietly beneath winter sunlight. 3 small riverside cabins leaned crookedly beneath towering sycamore trees. An old boat shed stood near the waterline with rusted tools hanging inside. Smoke stains marked an outdoor fire pit ringed with weathered wooden chairs. Abandoned, but not ruined. Ray walked slowly through the property while Rex explored ahead. Everywhere he looked, he found signs of intention. Extra firewood stacked beneath tarps, old blankets sealed in storage bins. Fishing poles, canned food, medical supplies. Cole Mercer had not built a hideout. He had built a refuge, a place designed to receive lost people. Ray stepped inside the largest cabin carefully. Dust floated through beams of pale sunlight cutting across the floorboards. A wood stove sat against one wall beside shelves filled with old paperbacks and military field manuals. On the table rested a carved wooden sign. "Home is the place you stop running." Ray stared at it for a long moment, then looked away quickly, because the words landed too close. Rex barked once outside near the riverbank. Ray followed him downhill through frozen grass toward the water. The white river rolled broad and silver beneath the winter sky. Eagles circled far above the cliffs, while icy current carried leaves silently downstream. Rex stood near a weathered wooden post beside the shoreline. Attached to it hung an old brass plaque, almost hidden beneath moss. "For Dauphin Good Dog, Good Marine, Good." 1968 to 1982, Ray swallowed hard. The old military dog was buried there, right beside the river. Rex sniffed the frozen ground quietly, then sat. No barking, no movement, just stillness, like soldiers paying respect at a grave. Ray stood beside him with cold wind moving through the pines overhead, and suddenly he understood why Rex trusted this place before any human did. Dogs recognized loyalty, even long after death. The drive back to Blackwater Bend happened mostly in silence, but something inside Ray had shifted again. For the first time in years, he found himself thinking ahead instead of merely enduring the present. Cabins repaired, veterans staying there, bonfires beside the river, people who understood silence. The idea scared him. Hope always did, because hope meant risking disappointment again. A few days later, snow arrived. Not much. Just enough to dust the marina docks white beneath the Christmas lights Martha insisted on hanging around the diner windows downtown. Ray watched the snowfall through the cabin window one evening, while Rex slept heavily beside the stove Earl had helped install earlier that week. The old houseboat felt warm now, safe, almost peaceful. The hidden compartment beneath the floor remained open, though Ray had reorganized most of the journals and letters into sealed containers for protection. Cole Mercer's legacy no longer felt like a mystery. It felt like responsibility. A small prepaid cell phone sat on the table beside the lantern. Ray had been staring at it nearly an hour. Rex opened one eye toward him. "Don't start," Ray muttered. The dog thumped his tail once. The phone remained there, heavy as a brick. Ray hated phone calls, always had. Too many deployment calls, too many casualty notifications. Too many awkward conversations after coming home from wars nobody knew how to discuss. But this call mattered, maybe more than any other. He picked up the phone slowly. His hand trembled slightly before dialing. The number still lived in his memory after 3 years of silence. Each ring tightened his chest harder. Then, "Hello?" "Emily." His daughter's voice sounded older now, more careful. Ray almost forgot how to speak. For one terrible second, he considered hanging up, running, doing what he always did when emotions became dangerous. But Rex lifted his head from beside the stove and watched him steadily. "Stay." Ray swallowed hard. "Hey, Emmy." Silence. Long silence. Then, "Dad?" The word hit like a physical blow. Ray stared at snow drifting past the cabin window. "Yeah." Another silence. Not angry this time. Uncertain. Emily finally spoke softly. "Are you okay?" The question nearly shattered him. Not accusation, not resentment, concern, after everything. "I'm trying," he answered honestly. That seemed to surprise her. For years, Ray had hidden behind excuses, promises, half-truths about jobs and drinking and disappearing. Now he simply told the truth. Snow gathered quietly along the marina outside while the old houseboat rocked gently beneath the winter wind. "I'm in Arkansas," he said, "on a river." Emily laughed faintly through the phone. "Of course you are." Some warmth returned to her voice then. Small, fragile, real. Ray told her about the houseboat, about Rex getting injured, about restoring the marina. Not everything. Not yet. But enough. For once, he didn't try pretending he had life figured out. He just spoke honestly. "I know I disappeared," he said quietly after a while. "And I know sorry doesn't fix that." Silence again. Then Emily answered softly, "No, it doesn't." Ray closed his eyes briefly. Deserved. Completely deserved. But she kept talking. "You sound different, though." He looked down at Rex sleeping beside the stove. "Maybe I am." Snow continued falling softly across Blackwater Bend. The conversation lasted nearly an hour. Careful. Awkward. But alive. When the call finally ended, Ray sat motionless at the table for a long time holding the silent phone. Rex limped over slowly and rested his heavy head across Ray's knee. The old Malinois looked exhausted, gray spreading around his muzzle now, eyes softer with age, but still loyal, still here. Ray rubbed behind the dog's ears slowly, while tears threatened for the first time in years. Not from sadness exactly. Relief, maybe, because after so much drifting, something impossible had finally happened. He had stopped running long enough for another human being to find him again. Outside, snow covered the marina in white silence while warm light glowed through the rebuilt cabin windows onto the dark river beyond. And deep beneath the floorboards, hidden among old journals and forgotten letters, the legacy of one lonely Vietnam veteran continued quietly bringing broken people home. Winter passed slowly along the white river, the kind of slow that heals things. Ice formed along the shoreline in January before melting beneath weak afternoon sunlight. Bald eagles returned to the cliffs upriver. Fog rolled across the marina nearly every dawn, while the rebuilt houseboat rocked gently against fresh dock lines Ray installed himself. By February, people in Blackwater Bend stopped calling it the Cursed Boat. Now they called it Maddox's Place. The name settled into town naturally, like Ray himself had. The transformation of the old houseboat became impossible to ignore. The steel hull now carried a deep navy blue paint that reflected sunlight like dark river water at midnight. New cedar siding lined the cabin walls. Warm yellow light glowed through restored windows every evening while smoke curled from the small stovepipe above the roof. It no longer looked abandoned. It looked lived in. Loved, maybe. Ray never would have admitted that word aloud. Still, every board he repaired carried care inside it. Rex recovered enough to patrol the marina again by early spring, though age finally showed openly now. His limp worsened during cold mornings, and sometimes Ray caught him sleeping harder than before beside the stove. But the old Malinois still checked every stranger who approached the dock, still watched doors, still slept facing outward. Some instincts never faded, neither did loyalty. The 12 acres upriver slowly changed too. Ray spent weekends rebuilding the cabins with help from Earl Bennett and half the town before he fully realized it was happening. Fishermen donated lumber. Martha Gale arrived every Saturday with chili and coffee for whoever worked longest. Even teenagers from town showed up occasionally hauling tools and paint supplies through the woods. People wanted the place to exist. Maybe because every small town carried veterans nobody quite knew how to help. Now there was finally somewhere for them to land. By April, the first cabin stood fully repaired beside the river. Simple, clean, warm. Ray placed one rule above the doorway, handwritten on reclaimed wood. No questions you don't want answered. Veterans started arriving quietly after that. Not crowds, just drifters. Men Earl heard about through truck stops and VFW halls. A former Army medic sleeping in his pickup after divorce. A Marine mechanic struggling with nightmares after 2 tours overseas. A National Guard helicopter crew chief whose drinking nearly cost him everything. Ray never asked for details. He simply handed them keys, told them where the coffee was, showed them the river. Most stayed only a few days. Some stayed longer. All of them noticed Rex first. The old combat dog became something almost legendary around the cabins. Men who refused therapy somehow ended up talking to Rex beside campfires at midnight. Veterans who barely spoke indoors found themselves throwing sticks for the aging Malinois along the riverbank while sunlight filtered through sycamore trees overhead. Animals made honesty easier. Rex understood silence better than counselors ever could. One evening in late April, Ray sat beside the fire pit overlooking the river, while 3 veterans swapped stories quietly nearby. Nobody talked directly about war. Not really. They talked about heat, dust, missing home. The strange feeling of walking through grocery stores after deployment, while civilians argued about meaningless things. Shared language, shared ghosts. Rex slept beside the fire with his graying muzzle resting across his paws, while sparks drifted upward into the Ozark night. Ray looked around slowly, the cabins glowing warm beneath the trees, the river moving silver through moonlight. Men laughing quietly for the first time in years. And suddenly he understood what Cole Mercer truly built. Not charity, community. A place where broken people stopped pretending they were unbroken. His phone rang the following morning just after sunrise. Emily. Ray answered immediately. You busy? Never too busy for you. The words surprised both of them. A soft pause followed. Then Emily laughed quietly. Well, me and Noah are driving through Arkansas next weekend. Ray sat up straighter instantly. Noah? My son remembers? Your grandson? Emotion hit so hard it nearly stole his breath. Right. Noah. 8 years old now. Ray had missed too much. Yeah, he managed softly. I remember. Another silence. Gentler this time. We'd like to see the river, Emily said carefully. If that's okay. Ray stared out across the water beyond the dock. Spring sunlight shimmered across the current, while Rex lifted his head sleepily beside him. Yeah, Ray whispered. I'd like that. The following Saturday dawned bright and cool beneath clear Ozark skies. Ray woke before sunrise, unable to settle his nerves. He cleaned the houseboat twice, then cleaned it again. Rex followed him patiently from room to room like an exhausted supervisor. You think this is funny? Ray muttered. Tail thump. At 10:30, a silver SUV rolled slowly into the marina parking lot. Ray's chest tightened immediately. Emily stepped out first. Older now, more like her mother around the eyes. Then the passenger door opened. A small boy with messy brown hair jumped out carrying a toy fishing pole nearly bigger than himself. Noah. Ray froze. For one terrible second, he feared the child might feel awkward or distant around him. Instead, Noah spotted Rex immediately. "Oh, wow!" The boy sprinted toward the dock before Emily could stop him. Rex rose slowly to greet him, carefully. The old Malinois sniffed the child once, then leaned gently against him. Instant acceptance. Noah laughed loudly while hugging the dog's neck. "He's huge." Ray felt something inside him crack quietly open. Emily watched the scene from the dock entrance with tears shining in her eyes. She tried pretending weren't there. "He likes you," Ray said softly. Noah looked up seriously. "I think he's protecting you." Ray swallowed hard. "Yeah," he whispered. "He's been doing that a long time." The day passed easier than Ray expected. Noah fished off the dock beside Earl while Martha brought sandwiches from the diner. Emily walked through the restored houseboat slowly, touching photographs and rebuilt walls while sunlight danced across the river outside. "You did all this?" she asked quietly. "Had help." But she understood what he meant. Not just rebuilding wood and steel, rebuilding himself. That evening, they all drove upriver to the sanctuary cabins together. Noah ran ahead throwing sticks for Rex through tall grass near the shoreline, while Emily stood beside Ray, watching the sunset spill gold across the white river. "You seem peaceful here," she said softly. Ray looked toward the cabins beneath the trees, the veterans sitting around the fire, the smoke rising quietly into evening sky, Rex lying near Noah's feet. "Closest I've been in a long time." Emily slipped her hand gently through his arm. No anger left now, not completely healed either, but healing. Real healing. After dark, once everyone slept, Ray walked alone back down toward the houseboat dock, carrying a small metal box beneath one arm. The river moved quietly through moonlight beside him. Inside the cabin, he opened the hidden compartment one final time. Cole Mercer's journals remained sealed carefully inside. The letters, the silver coins, the old memories. Ray added 3 new things beside them. Rex's worn combat collar from Afghanistan, 1 silver dollar from Cole Mercer's collection, and a sealed, handwritten envelope. He stared at the envelope a long moment before placing it gently beside the others. The front simply read, "For the next man who thinks he's too broken to come home." Ray closed the compartment slowly. The steel hatch settled into place with a soft, metallic click. Behind him, Rex limped quietly into the cabin and rested beside the stove once more. Older now. Tired, but still here. Ray sat beside him while fog rolled softly across the river outside. For a long time, neither soldier moved. Then Ray looked around the warm cabin glowing gently against the dark Arkansas night. The rebuilt walls, the quiet river, the life waiting beyond tomorrow. And finally, after years of drifting through war and loss and silence, Ray Maddox understood something simple and true. The old houseboat had not saved 1 broken veteran. It had saved 2. If you believe some people and some dogs come into our lives for a reason, type yes down in the comments. And if you've ever had to rebuild yourself after life knocked you down, we'd love to hear where you're watching from tonight. Subscribe if stories about loyalty, second chances, and good people finding their way home still mean something to you.